Okay, hello everyone for joining this session. In this session, basically we will get started as you will be undergoing the JMeter web performance testing training. So it is important that you know about a few things that will give you a head start, and things will become much more simpler to you when you actually go through the training videos. So I will spend now a few minutes on the performance testing concepts, and then we will move to JMeter installation, and then start working with JMeter. So keep in mind that I'm not going to cover everything in detail in this particular session, but just give you enough information about the basics so that you can get started, and you will find all the details with lots and lots of examples in the training videos. At any time during this session, you can use the chat window, and we will use that to communicate. The reason why I have put this discussion in listen only mode is that if I put it in discussion mode, then sometimes we get the echo problem. So that is the reason this discussion is listen only mode. You will be able to hear my voice at all times, but uh, you will not be able to speak up your questions, but you can type the same in the chat window. So just going to check. Okay. All right. So just let us go through the basics quickly. So you already know about performance and how important performance testing is in testing the systems. It is a non-functional kind of testing that we do in addition to functional testing. There are other types of non-functional testing also, like security testing or usability testing, etc. But performance testing is very important because the overall speed of the user's work is determined by the performance of the system. Now, just by thinking about it, people tend to relate performance with speed, but it is not only the speed, it is other characteristics of the system also. So if the system has higher capacity, or it uses less resources leading to cost savings, or it is more stable, or can work for long periods of time without failure, or it is more accurate, we say it has higher performance. So in performance testing, just keep in mind that there is always a comparison of our system under test with respect to something else, and what it is compared to is maybe the competing product or service, or it can be the previous release of the product or service, whatever it is. It is always a comparison. If we don't have any competing product or previous release, then the performance testing is done with respect to the standards and norms that we have in mind. Okay, the need of performance testing, this is important in case of new products and services, when the organization wants to impress the users with higher performance, or at the very least they have to meet the user expectations. If the users are already using the existing version of the product or service, or there may be contractual requirements. Now, next thing we need to know about is certain important concepts, certain important terms that are used in performance testing. So first is the business transaction. So what is the meaning of a business transaction? Well, first of all, in the system under test, you need to identify the main types of users. So a system can have many different types of users. There may be, let's say, there is an e-commerce shopping website, and it has shoppers, it has visitors, it has finance users, it has shipping department users, it has management users. So there are so many different types of users, different user profiles. So first thing we need to identify is the main user types, the main user profiles. So in case of e-commerce shopping website, the business is driven by, we can say, the shoppers and the shipping department. Shoppers do the actual purchases, and the shipping department actually ensures that the goods are physically shipped to the shoppers. So in performance testing, we cannot test everything. We cannot test all transactions for all user types. That is not possible. Why? Because that would make it very complicated. That is not the goal of the performance testing, to test out the functionality for different user types. No. Just as in functional testing, we have to focus upon the important functionalities. In performance testing, we have to focus on the important user profiles. So in the case of our e-commerce shopping website, we have to focus on the shoppers, and we have to focus on the shipping department. Now, for each user profile, we have to identify what are the main task workflows, meaning that what are the main end-to-end activities that the users perform, main ones, meaning that the shopper may have a task workflow of say checking out. Okay, so this involves a number of steps. These steps are: select a product category, then select a product, then add the product to the shopping cart, proceed to checkout, enter financial information, enter shipping information, and click on checkout. So this end-to-end work that the shopper does constitutes the workflow. So like that, we can have maybe 2, maybe 3, so maybe a few workflows. So these main task workflows are called the business transactions, and these are the basis of the project. So in the performance testing tool, what we do is we convert these business transactions into performance testing scripts and then test them out. Another concept in performance testing is virtual users. In functional testing, we have testers who pretend to be real users using the system, and they go through different functionality. They enter some data, and they operate the system and look at the results that the system is showing them. Now, in performance testing, the challenge is that we may have to work with a large number of users. So let us say we want to test our e-commerce shopping website with 100 users, all working together, all working concurrently. Now obviously it is a challenge to get 100 real persons and have them use the system at the same time. So in performance testing tools, we have virtual users available. So what they are is, they are software representations of real users. They are generated and controlled by the performance testing tool, and we assign these users to the performance test scripts, and their main purpose is that they perform the business transactions within the performance testing tool. Now these are the performance test scripts, and the performance test script is based on the business transaction. If you have never looked at a business transaction, let me show it to you how it looks like. This is a rough diagram of what the business transaction looks like when it is documented. So you would have seen the manual test cases that are used in functional testing. So there we have a column for the step, and then we have a column to the right for the expected results. In the case of business transaction, we are not really concerned about the expected results. So we just put the step, and then we put the performance requirement. So here, for instance, the step is select a product, and the maximum response time is 3 seconds. So what this means is that when the user selects the product, the system updates itself and selects that particular product in a maximum of 3 seconds. Then the second step is added to the shopping cart, and here the maximum response time we are looking for is 5 seconds, which means that in 5 seconds the system should be able to update itself so that it has put the selected product in the user's shopping cart. So that is how a business transaction looks like. Now in the performance test script, we have to convert the business transaction steps into requests. So for every step in the business transaction, we have to put one or more requests, one or more corresponding requests in the performance test script. So this we'll see when we see the working example in JMeter. Then we have something called as a test, and both the performance testing script and the test are built in the performance testing tool only. So a performance test is simply a container of one or more performance testing scripts. So in one performance test, let's say that you initially identified 10 important business transactions. So now you converted those 10 business transactions into 10 performance test scripts. So your test is going to have those 10 performance test scripts. Then we can specify how many iterations we want for each of the scripts, how many times we want each script to be executed. And the other thing is that test is executed by virtual users. So we assign the virtual users to different scripts within the test. So just to show it to you diagrammatically. Okay. So at the innermost, we have the performance test scripts. It can be one script or it can be any number of scripts here. Each test will contain that entire set of scripts, whether it is one script or multiple scripts. And we can have any number of tests running against the system under test. The entire set of the tests running at that time under the system under test is called the workload. Okay, now you already know that as with other types of testing in performance testing, we have open source tools and we have commercial tools. Open source tool means source code is available. Usually open source tools are free. There is no license cost associated with it. JMeter is the leading open source performance testing tool, and that is what this course is all about. All right. Now let us come to the performance KPI. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. These are some qualities or characteristics of the system that indicate its performance. So first we have the response time. What is the meaning of response time? Well, response time means that when JMeter it starts when JMeter sends out a request to the server. It includes the time it takes for the request to travel over the network, whether it is traveling over the internet or whether it is traveling over the local area network, whatever. It includes the time it takes for the server to process that request. Then it includes the time it takes for the server to send the entire response back to the client. On the other hand, we have latency. Latency is a subset of the response time. Latency means it starts when the JMeter sends out the request to the server, includes the time it takes for the request to travel over the network. It includes the time it takes the server to generate the response, and it stops as soon as the first byte of the response is received back at the JMeter. So just to show you in a diagram. So on the horizontal axis, the x-axis, we have the time going by. So let us focus on response time. So here we see that the response time starts when the request is sent out. So it takes a while for the request to travel to the server. Okay, here. Then it takes a while for the server to process the response. And then the server starts sending the response back to the client, back to JMeter. So it takes time for the entire response to come back to JMeter. This entire time is called the response time. So obviously, if you have a very high performing system, then the response time will be low. If it is a poorly performing system, then the response time will be high. So just as if you ask a question to a smart person, you will get very quick response time. So the moment you ask the question, immediately, shortly after, you get the response. So you have a very quick response time. But if you ask a question to a slow person, then it may take a while for them to understand the question. It may take a while for them to generate the response and give it back to you. So the response time will be more. So in case of high performing systems, the response time is low. Here is the latency. So latency includes the time the request is sent to the server over the network. The server processes the request and starts sending the response. So latency stops when the first byte of the response is received at the client at the JMeter side. Also keep in mind that there is an additional time called the render time. This depends on what user interface you are using. If you are using your browser, then after the entire response is received at your browser, the browser takes a while to render it within the browser window by displaying the images, by executing the client-side JavaScript and so on. So that is additional time. Performance testing tools are not worried about this render time, because this render time depends on the client software that is being used. JMeter also does not bother about this render time. JMeter bothers about the time that is relevant to the server, relevant to the system under test. So it bothers, it measures response time and it measures latency. Then there is a maximum concurrent VU. This stands for virtual users. So how many concurrent or how many simultaneous users is the system able to support without becoming unresponsive or without becoming too slow? So that is also a performance KPI. So a higher performing system will have a higher capacity for maximum virtual users it supports. So if we have to compare two systems and one system is able to support 100 concurrent users, the other system is able to support 1000 concurrent users, we say that the second system, because it is supporting more users concurrently, has higher performance. Then another KPI is throughput. Throughput means the work done in unit time by the server. So we can measure throughput in responses per second or responses per minute. We can find out, JMeter can find out how many responses is the system sending every minute. So higher throughput means higher performance. Okay. Here is a graph of taken from JMeter. The blue line indicates the average response time. So remember that low response time means better performance. And this is the x-axis is the time into the test. So it starts initially. Initially the response time was more, but then it started coming down, and then it became horizontal, meaning it settled down. And here is the throughput, and we can see initially throughput was low, then it kept on increasing, and then it plateaued after a while. Okay. So let me stop here and ask you, is everything clear so far, or should I repeat anything? You will get all the details of all the things I have discussed in the training videos. Everything is in there. If you don't fully understand it first time, just view the video again, and you'll be able to understand it, because it has the videos have a lot of examples, and in JMeter also there are lots of examples. Okay, very good, Monica. Mayank, what about you? Are things clear to you so far? You don't have to remember everything right now. That will come with repeated viewing of the videos and practice. So just relax and try to understand what is being discussed here. All right, good. Okay, then we have types of performance testing. Many people interchangeably use performance test and load test, but it is not the same thing. Load test is a type of performance test. Very common, but only a type of performance test. In load test, we put a fixed load. So what this means is that we have a fixed number of concurrent virtual users. A fixed number of users are there. So let us say we are loading the system with 50 users. So that is the fixed load in load test. And load test we run for a fixed duration. So each of those 50 users keep on executing the performance test scripts for a fixed duration of time. So maybe we put a load of 50 users doing the test scripts, and they do it for 15 minutes. So that is a load test. There is another type of test called the stress test. Stress test is really a series of load tests. So here what we do is we keep on increasing the number of concurrent virtual users. So we have a 15-minute test with 50 users. We run it and see if the system continues to work. Then we increase the load to 100 users, again run the same test for 15 minutes, see if the system was able to cope. Then like that we keep on increasing the number of virtual users. Every system has a limit. So if you go beyond that limit, the system will fail. So what happens is that when the system fails, how do you recognize it? Well, the system may become totally unresponsive, refusing to accept any connections, or when you try to connect to the system, it throws errors, or maybe it shows a dump that nothing is working, or some program has crashed, So these are some of the symptoms indicating system failure. So the goal of stress test is to find the highest point at which the system continues to work. So in our example, first we put the load of 50 users, it worked. 100 users, it worked. 200 users, it worked. 400 users, it did not work. So the capacity, maximum capacity of the system is between 200 and 400 users. Then we need to go deeper within that range and see system works at 300 users. It does not work at 350 users. So we can say that our system is able to support 300 concurrent users. And such type of testing, which is a series of load tests with increasing load, is called the stress test. Then one more common type of performance test is the endurance test. This is done on systems which are expected to be on for long periods of time, like web servers or any servers which have to be on for weeks or months. So we do the endurance test. In endurance test, we put a fixed load for a long time, like 12 hours or 24 hours. We just want to find out if the system continues to work when subjected to fixed load for long hours or not. All right. Now let us go to this theory. Just give me 1 second. All right. Thanks for standing by. Now this is the overall testing process. So initially what you do is you identify the performance requirements, you identify the main user profiles, you identify the main business transactions for each user profile. Once you have that input data, you can start the performance testing process. So basically you will do the test script modeling, and test script modeling involves converting the business transaction into the performance test script. Okay, so every step given in the business transaction is converted to corresponding requests within the performance test script, and this happens within the performance testing tool. In our case, we will create the performance test script within JMeter. Then once you have all your performance test scripts ready, then you need to prepare the data. Now test data is you need more volume of test data in performance testing. In functional testing, maybe few test data is sufficient to test out all the permutations and combinations of inputs that can be given for the users. In case of performance testing, we run the same performance test script many number of times. So we can have 100 virtual users running the performance test scripts, and each user running it 5 times. So the same performance test script may have to run 500 times. So we need the data to support all those executions, all those iterations. If we don't do that, if we run the same script with the same data every time, then what happens is that the system caches the responses. This is what has been seen in reality. If the system caches the response, we will get an impression that the performance is much higher, not based on reality. So that is why we have to give sufficiently different data in different executions of the same script. So for instance, if the performance test script searches for a product, and every time it searches for the product, let's say a particular brand of smartphone, okay, in the e-commerce shopping website, then sooner or later the server will understand that there is a heavy demand for this type of request, so it will cache the response in its memory. It will not actually process the request, it will just look at the request and immediately shoot the response back. So that is why we have to have 500 different products in the test data. Every iteration of the test script will send different test data to the server. Okay. Then side by side, we have to prepare the environment for the performance test. Performance test environment constitutes two sections. One section is the system under test. So if it is a website, it will have a web server, an application server, a database server. Okay, so that is the system under test, same as you have in functional testing. We need one more section in performance testing, and that section is the load generators. Now, it is not possible to put very large load from a single computer. In order to do that, either you need to put the load from a server, or you need to use number of desktop computers to generate the load. So for example, if you have to put a load of 1000 virtual users, so you cannot, your desktop computer or your laptop will not be able to generate 1000 virtual users. So for that, you may have to distribute, you may have to use 5 desktop computers and put a load of 200 users from each. So the performance test environment will consist of the system under test, and it will also consist of the load generators. So once you have the test scripts ready, the test data is ready, the environment is ready, then we build the performance test itself. In JMeter, the performance test is called the test plan. So we build the performance test, and in performance test we put all the performance test scripts and assign virtual users to each of the performance test scripts, and the performance test script internally will pick up the test data. Now in the case of once the test is ready, then we execute it. After execution, we may need we may think, okay, we need to change something, you know, or we need to include one more script, we forgot to include it, whatever. So we, after execution, we come back and we change our test accordingly, and then we run it. Here is another difference between functional testing and performance testing. In functional testing, you may just execute the manual test case once, and you have the results with you. You're not going to run the same test case 5 times or 10 times. In performance testing, it is a bit different. Every time you execute the test, you will get different results because there are so many variables involved. So your load generators may have different levels of utilization. The system under test may have different levels of utilization. The network that you are using, your office network or the internet, that may be free, or that may be a little busy. So there are so many variables. So in performance testing, we do not stop at the first execution, but we execute it a number of times just to see the consistency across the test results. So once we have the test all ready, then we run it once, we look at the test results, and then we run the test again we look at the test results until we get a consistent set of test results. And in the videos I have shown an Excel sheet where it shows you what are inconsistent test results and consistent test results. Basically, consistent test results mean that results that are close together. So once we get the results repeatedly which are close together, we can stop the execution and we can report it. Okay. So let me show you just a couple of things here. Few words about the test environment preparation. First, it should be either isolated. If it is an isolated test environment, then you need not worry about many variables because your load generator and the system under test are the only players in it. Usually that is not available. We have to run the performance test on the corporate network, or we have to run it on the internet even. So just make sure you run the test during the off hours, like late night, early morning, weekend holiday, those kinds of things. Second thing in the test environment is that we should have load generators which are powerful. So either you have to use number of load generator machines. If you are using desktop computers or laptops as load generators, use a number of them, or use servers which are able to generate that amount of load. Important thing in performance test environment is that it has to be a production like environment as far as possible, because the performance test tries to find out, tries to predict what will be the system performance in production. So naturally we have to have a production like environment in which to run the performance test. If the production environment and performance test environment are very different, then performance test results are of no use because they have been tested on a different environment. So a good performance test environment is a staging environment. Staging environment is specifically built to be just like production. So that is the place where you can run the performance test. If that is not available, then you can run the performance test after taking the required approvals on the production environment during the off hours. Okay, then here is the report. Status report is your daily status report. What performance test scripts were executed, how many users were loaded on the system, you know, those kinds of things. The final report is what is important. So it contains these particular sections. It contains the summary, what approach you used, basically whether it was a load test, a stress test, an endurance test, or any combination. What test scripts were there, what test data was used, what was the volume of the test data, what was the test environment, which was the system under test and load generators, and what were the test results, meaning what were the benchmarks. Benchmarks meaning after you got the consistent test results, you can say that okay, this particular transaction gave these response times, and those become the benchmarks. You can also put suggested actions against it, what further improvements can be done on the system. So that is about the concepts. Now we can move to JMeter installation. So is everything clear so far? All right. Now what I will do is go to JMeter installation, and let me close. Okay, now what is JMeter? Now JMeter is an open source performance testing tool, and it is free for use. There is no license fee associated with it. Then it is a Java application. It is a Java program. So because it is a Java program, it needs Java in order for it to work. So here the question is whether you have Java installed on your computer or not. So JMeter needs version 6 or higher. So one way of finding out whether you have Java installed on your computer or not is open up the command window, and here you can type in the command java space minus version, and if Java is installed, it will show you what is the version number, and if not, then it will say unrecognized command. So here it says I have Java 1.7.0_40. This is the latest version. In short, the first digit is excluded, and they say Java 7 update 40. Okay. Another way of finding out whether you have Java installed or not is go to your control panel, and there if you see a Java icon, that means you have Java installed. Okay. It is possible that you have an older version of Java installed on your computer, because Java is such a common thing, a common prerequisite for many programs. You may have an older version. So my suggestion is do not have an older version of Java on your computer, because they keep on coming with new versions which are more secure. So it is always better to have just the latest version of Java on your computer. So how you can find that out is go to programs, and here if you see older Java like Java 6 something, you know, then you can right click on it and uninstall it. Okay. If you are not sure, then just uninstall Java, and you can always install the latest version. So how you can install the latest version is go to the Java website, which is www.java.com. And here you can see there is a button for free Java download. So just click on that. It will tell you what is the latest version. So it says recommended version 7 update 40. This means this is version, full version name is 1.7.40. So you click on agree and start free download, and then you have to save the file somewhere. So once you save the file, then you can double click on the file and proceed with the Java installation. Okay. Right. Next we need to go to JMeter, and this is the important part. So go to the JMeter website. So the JMeter website is jmeter.apache.org, and as you can see, JMeter is a part of a project of the Apache Software Foundation. Apache Software Foundation is the group that is responsible for a number of open source projects. They have other products also, like Apache Web Server, Tomcat Server, and so on. So very good products. JMeter is also a very good product. So JMeter is directly under Apache, which means that it is the important project of Apache. So there is a whole community of developers behind JMeter, these developers in the Apache Software Foundation. Anyway, to download, you click on the link here and in the download section, download releases, and scroll a little. Then There are two sections here. One is for binary and one is for source. So if you have a Windows computer, you have to click on the Apache JMeter 2.9.zip. So click on it. It will ask you where you want to save that file. Okay, and I've set my Firefox so that it asks me for the download location. If you have the download location already specified, then it will automatically download it over there. Wherever it is downloaded, we can go over there. So I already have it downloaded here. Okay, so it is about 28 MB. Then next thing you need to do is unzip it. So click on extract all. Once you do that, it creates a folder by this name, Apache JMeter 2.9. Just go into it. Again, there will be a folder Apache JMeter 2.9. Go into it. There will be a folder by the name of bin. Go into it. And within the bin folder, you will find a file called jmeter.bat. This one. So you can create a shortcut to this file because this is the file that launches JMeter. So I can click on send to desktop as a shortcut. Okay, and this also I have already done. And here is the shortcut. So I double click on it and JMeter starts. So this is JMeter. As you can see from the title bar, version 2.9. Okay, so there is no installation in JMeter. It is just a Java program. So as long as you have the latest version of Java installed on your computer, you can work with JMeter. Just download JMeter, unzip it, and double click on the jmeter.bat file, and that starts JMeter. This is an important step because unless you are able to launch JMeter, you won't be able to proceed. So just make sure you have Java installed on your computer and then download JMeter, extract it, and double click on the jmeter.bat file. Any questions? Is it clear? Yeah, JMeter, the question is, can JMeter be run as a Windows-based program? Yes, it is a Windows-based program. As you can see, I have, one second. Okay, I have Windows 7 and you can see JMeter is working. So JMeter is also available for other operating systems, but this training course is for JMeter running on Windows. All right. So just make sure that you have JMeter working. If not, you can drop me an email and I can probably help you with that. Okay, now let us next go to the user interface of JMeter. Before we started building performance test scripts and test plans within JMeter, let us just look at the user interface. So this entire JMeter window is called the JMeter Console. Okay, the JMeter Console has two important sections. There is a section on the left hand side, this white pane that you can see. This is called the tree view. Okay, it is not looking like a tree view right now, but once we start adding the elements, then it will look like a tree view. On the right hand side, we have the control panel. So whatever element you select in the tree view, it shows a corresponding control panel. So if I select test plan, which is selected, it shows the settings I can make for test plan. Okay, so I can change the name, I can put some comment, I can check any of these boxes, I can do all these things. If I click on workbench, then workbench is selected in the tree view, and you can see the control panel for workbench. So in workbench, I can only change the name and put the comments. Now there are some menu options available here that you see, but what they have done is they have put the very commonly used operations in the toolbar for ease of use. Okay, so let us try something simple, and the example that we are going to take is something that goes we will run a very small test against my blog website with couple of users and like that. So if you have not seen my blog, so it is inderpsing.blogspot.com. Okay, so this is my blog by the name of Software Testing Space, right? And here you will find different articles, right? And you can go to the older posts, etc., all that. Now the articles are also categorized. So for example, in test automation category there are 51 articles. In functional testing there are 43 articles, like that. In performance and load testing there are 14 articles, and directly you can go to the relevant articles in performance and load testing just by clicking on that category over there. Okay, so this is what we are going to use as an example. So how you get started? Now let me just get you started here. Okay, so what we first of all we have to do is go to the test plan and right click on it. Everything works by right clicking in JMeter tree view. Okay, so just make sure you right click. So you click on right click, and then you go to add, you go to threads, and you go to thread group. Now what is a thread group? A thread group means a user group. In JMeter, users are called threads. Threads is just a technical name for users. Users are represented by threads, which are processes in the computer's memory. So just something you have to bear with in JMeter. In JMeter, users means threads, or threads means users. Okay. So here you can change the number of users. It just puts one user by default. So let it be like that. We'll come back to this later. Now within the thread group, we have to put a request. Okay, so what we do is the requests are called as samplers in JMeter. Why they are called samplers? Let me just add the request first. So we go to add, then we go to samplers and click on HTTP request. We want to send a HTTP request. HTTP request means it is a request that will be sent to a web server. All right. Why they call the requests as samplers in JMeter is that the reason is probably because they sample the response in JMeter, meaning that once they get the response, they sample it to display its KPI, the key performance indicators out of that. So just as users are called threads, requests are called samplers. Okay. Now here what I have to do is I have to put the web server name, so that I copied from when I opened the page. Important thing to keep in mind is that initially you don't have to put the protocol. You don't have to put http:// etc. That is automatically prefixed by JMeter. If you put that, it will give an error. Okay, so don't put that. It will be done automatically by JMeter. And at the end, I have the /. So / really is a path, which means the home page. So path has to be put separately. So just we have to put a couple of things. We have to put the server name, where the request is going, and we have to put the path. That's it. Okay. Now we need one more thing here. We need to put a report also. So reports are called listeners in JMeter. Why? Because they listen to the responses and show the KPI, etc. So just as users are called threads, requests are called samplers, and reports are called listeners. So what we do, we right click on the thread group, go to add, go to listener, and then click on view results in table. Okay. So this is the basic kind of test. So very simple. It just goes to sends out a request to this server and this path within the server, and will show the results in the table. Okay. Now how do I run this test? Now in order to run the test, before you should save it. So let me save this test. So we can save it by clicking on the save icon here. So I can save it to any place. Let me save it as hello world plan. Okay. Then we have to run it. So in order to run it, we have to click on the start button. So let us run it. So when the test is running, you will see the run box here becomes green. I will show it to you again. So just notice the top right corner, the run box will become green. See, it became green. And here we have the test results. Now JMeter does not automatically clear the results of the previous test run. So it should, but it does not. So we have to clear it explicitly. So the easiest way to do it is use the clear all button. If you give clear all, it will automatically clear the results in all the listeners, not only this one, but all the listeners that you have in the test plan. So let me run the test again. So test is complete now because the run box has become gray. And here you can see a number of things in the results. First is the sample number. So sample number 1 means there was one response from the server. The start time of the sample was 10:07. The thread group was 1-1. 1 means it is a first thread group. If I put two thread groups, then first thread group will be called as 1, second thread group will be called as 2. And the last number 1 indicates a number of the virtual user. Okay. Then what was the label? Label was HTTP request. It has picked it up from this name over here. Then it says sample time is 975. This is in milliseconds. So close to 1 second was the response time. So the entire time it took for JMeter to send the request over the internet to the website, and for the website to process that response and send the entire response back to JMeter was less than 1 second. And status here is okay, green. If there is an error, there is a problem, then the status becomes orange and there is an exclamation sign instead of the tick mark. This is number of bytes in the response, and this is the latency. So as you know, latency is a subset of the response time. So latency means the moment the request was sent by JMeter to the server processed that request and sent the first byte of the response back to the JMeter. So that time was a latency. It took further some time for the entire response to come back to JMeter, and that is there in the response time. Okay. Now we can do a few things here. So first let us tidy it up a little bit. The thread group is called thread group. So let us change the name. So let us call it blog users. Just give a more relevant name. And in JMeter, whenever we change any setting in the control panel, we don't have to press enter or anything. All you need to do is click on any other element in the tree view, and automatically you notice in the tree view currently it is called thread group, but as soon as I click on any other element, the tree view will update. See, I clicked on somewhere else and it updated the thread group name to blog users. Okay. Then HTTP request, I'm sending this request to the blog homepage. So let me change the name to homepage, and view results in table I can leave as it is, no problem. So let us run the test again and see that the labels will be changed here. So I clear all, start the test, and you see now the thread name is more meaningful. So it is blog users 1, meaning thread group 1 and 1 user, and the label is homepage for the request. So this has come and other details are the same. All right. So are you following me until now? Okay, so let me make it just a little bit more complicated. So what I'm going to do is here I had put one thread, and here the loop count is 1. What is the meaning of loop count? Well, loop count means how many iterations will be performed by JMeter. Okay. So here in our set of requests, we just have a single request. So how many times is JMeter going to send out that request? That we can specify here. So by default it is 1, but I can change this number. So let me change it to 5. Okay. And go to results. Now clear the test results. It is always a good practice whenever you make any changes to the test plan, you should save the test plan, just on the chance that if your system hangs or something when JMeter is running and you have not saved your changes, you will lose your changes. So always before running your test plan, you should save it. Now keep in mind that here I have one user doing 5 iterations. Okay. So basically my set of requests consists of one request. So it will send this request 5 times. Now I am selected the results and started the test. So you see this time JMeter ran my request 5 times and it got 5 responses back. Okay. Just notice that the response times are different for each of the 5 requests. So response time, the first time is more than 1 second, then 693, 833, 662, 667, like that. So in performance test, you will never get exactly the same results every time. So all we need to do is find out if the results are consistent. So here the response times, we cannot say they are consistent or not, because it is a small number of samples, small number of responses. Okay, but we can increase the number of requests, and that will give us data whether the response time is consistent or not. Status is okay, and bytes are the same, and latency is over here, right? Now what I am going to do is, I will now put, instead of one user, I will put two users. Okay, and each user will perform 3 iterations. Okay, so just to have multiple users and multiple iterations. Go to my view results in table, clear all, save my test plan, start the test. Okay, now here we see the difference. The difference is that earlier we used to get blog users 1-1, but now we are getting 1-1 and 1-2. That is because there are two users. So I am selecting all the responses received for request of user 1. So 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, and this one. So here we see that we gave 3 iterations for every user. Okay, we gave 3 iterations for every user. So user 1 has given 3 responses back, because there were 3 requests that were sent over here. Now similarly, if I select the responses for user 2, so again there are 3 in number, these 3, right? So this way we can have multiple users also. Okay, and these users are concurrent, and they all work together, because we can see that the requests sent by user 1 and user 2, they happen like just one after the other, you know. There is no specific order. We have not seen that first user 1 sent all the requests, then user 2 sent all the requests. They were all working in parallel, right? Now we can increase number of users also. I want to show you a couple of things, but I will not make it a very high number. Let's say just 5 users. Whenever we are practicing, just make sure that you work with a small number of users, because if you are practicing and you start hitting somebody's website with a large number of users, that website administrator may think that the website is under attack, and they may report it or something, you know. So always in practice, just make sure you have a few users, 2 or 3 users, something like that, you know. And you don't run the test for long period of time. Just run it for few iterations or couple of minutes, like that, because you are just learning. Now when you execute your real performance test, of course your client or your company will be aware that a performance test is gonna be there, and they anticipate it, and they will know it, and they may have people standing by in case a server goes down. The server administrator can bring it up back again. Okay, so that is all done. The performance test is done with prior approval. But when you're learning, when you're practicing, just work with small number of users, right? Okay, so now I clear the test results, save it, and run the test. And the test is running now, and we can see the results also. So how many responses we should have got? 5 users, each doing 3 iterations of 1 request. So it is 5 times 3 times 1. So there should be 15 responses in the, and that is what we got, right? Now here what I have done is I have put 5 users, but um, they are all loading together, so we cannot really see the difference. So what I can do is I can increase the time in which to load the users. So let me increase the time to 20 seconds here. And what will happen this time is that JMeter has now got a time of 20 seconds to load the 5 users. So basically it will load one user, it will start one user every 4 seconds. Okay, and let me show that to you, and I'll just put the loop count forever because I want to show one other thing. Loop count forever means infinite number of iterations. So basically JMeter will continue sending the requests until we terminate the test ourselves. Now notice in the top right corner we have 0 indicating number of running threads. So now number of running threads, meaning number of running users, is 0, and 5 is the total number of threads or total number of users. So I'll clear the test results, save my test plan, and run the test. So here you see the number has become 1. So then it has become 2. Why? Because JMeter is taking overall 20 seconds to load the users. So every 4 seconds it will add one more user until it reaches maximum of 5. So now 5 users are active. They are all sending out the requests, and we can see in the results also that see, there are already so many requests, and if you check scroll automatically, then it is sending all the requests over here. Okay, now the test is running, so the run box is green. Now we have got the results. Okay, the results are fine. We want to look at the results. We want to terminate the test. In JMeter there are two options available to terminate the test. One is to click on stop, and one is to click on shutdown. What is the difference? Stop immediately terminates all the threads without allowing them to complete the current iteration. So not a safe option, because it is possible that thread is somewhere in the middle of the test script, maybe it has opened a file, or it has opened a database connection, or it has sent a few requests, so better option is to go in for the shutdown. So shutdown allows the thread or the user to complete their current iteration, complete their current set of requests, and then terminates it. So I'll click on shutdown. So it says shutting down the threads. Please be patient. Shutdown involves a little more time than stop, but it is safer. So always go with shutdown when you have to stop the test. Okay. Now one more thing we can see here is we put a report, we put a listener, and it is a tabular listener. JMeter also has graphical reports, meaning graphical listeners. So let me add that. So I right click on the thread group, go to add listener, and go to graph results. And here let me clear all the test results and run the test. So as soon as the test runs, we see the data is coming in the tabular report here, and it is also coming in the graphical report. So there is lots of data. It shows data, average response time, median response time, deviation in response time, and throughput. Let us just select the important ones. Okay. So I have the average response time and I have the throughput. So the blue line is the average response time. So here we see the average response time was all over the place initially. Then it is kind of settling down now. So once it settles down, we can terminate the test by using the shutdown button. So if you look at the tabular listener, you have all this detailed data over here. Okay, so maybe you don't want to look at all the data. Maybe just you want to look at the graph. You want to see overall during the test what was the what were the performance KPI that JMeter observed. Okay, so this blue line is now flattening out, and we have a good number of samples also. We have good number of responses on which JMeter is operating now. So let us maybe wait for JMeter to get 1000 responses, then we will shut down the test. Because 1000 samples is statistically a large number, so the average of a large number is meaningful. Average of a small number of data is not meaningful. And we can see in the top right corner 5 out of 5 users are active and the test is running. When the test is running, the run box is green. When the test stops, the run box is grayed out. Okay, so we see the blue line over here, which is the response time, average response time, and the green indicates the throughput. So initially throughput was low, then it kept on climbing until it flattened out. And here we can see overall throughput also. So overall throughput is 307, 308 responses per minute. Okay. So JMeter, this graph result not only shows you the performance measures in graphical format, it also shows you the overall measures also. So quite useful. So now we have crossed 1000 samples. Let me shut down the test. Okay. So overall, if we see, the average response time is under 1 second. So it is 0.9 seconds. This time is in milliseconds. And the throughput is 311 or 312 responses per minute. So this is what we got in the test. And next, as I said, we don't do the test execution just once. We repeat it a few times to see every time we are getting consistent results. And then we can take these results and we can report it to the team and the stakeholders in the project. So this was just a very basic, very simple kind of a performance test. And but you have seen some important concept: thread group, meaning user group in JMeter. So every performance test script will have its own thread group, and there you can specify how many users will run that performance test script. Then within the thread group, we have the requests. So thread group corresponds to the performance test script. The request corresponds to the step within that script. Then we include listeners or reports in JMeter, and there are tabular listeners and there are graphical listeners. They show the data accordingly. And in the thread group, we can specify how many users will be there in the thread group. We can specify a ramp up period, meaning we can specify the time over which the users will be launched by JMeter, just to make it more realistic. Because in real websites, all the users don't come suddenly onto the system. They build up over a period of time. So that is exactly what ramp up allows us to do. And we can specify whether the users will perform a fixed number of iterations, say 20 iterations, you know, or we can put the loop count as forever. If we put the loop count as forever, then JMeter will not terminate the test on its own. We have to either click on stop or shutdown. Shutdown is the better option because it allows the user to complete its current work. It allows, in other words, in JMeter lingo, it allows the current thread to finish its iteration. Okay. and these are the results. If you want to see the details in tabular format, you can use a tabular listener. If you want to see graphical results, you can look at this. So that is the introduction, just to get started. So is everything clear so far? All right.